Oh, you're recording. Okay. Good morning, friends.
Good morning. Good morning.
While much of Christendom focuses more intently on the miracle of Jesus' resurrection at Easter time, I've come to appreciate and envelop the Easter story with the events leading up to it and the events that followed right after it. For me, Easter doesn't begin with the miracle of resurrection. It starts with small, simple things like a shared meal, a kiss, a long night filled with fear and prayer. These are just part of all the intense stories that precede that culmination of the Easter event. The stories that follow Jesus' resurrection are equally as pivotal. An empty tomb guarded by strangers, the angelic vision seen by the women who are at the tomb, intriguing encounters between the risen Jesus and his followers, first two on the road to Emmaus and then Simon, and lastly with the disciples and other companions who had gathered together back in Jerusalem. Easter is the ineffable story of resurrection, enfolded within stories where humans meet the divine, when the ordinary is touched by the sacred. Easter's not only a story of resurrection, it's the story of being surprised by grace, time and time again, right in the middle of a lot of confusion. Grace that leads us to something, to someone, or somewhere new. The particular story that's often referenced this Sabbath day following Easter is one I enjoy retelling. It's the reason I'm grateful David signs up to give the prepared message on Easter, because that way I get the chance to return to the road to Emmaus. It's one of the many instances in the Judeo-Christian scriptures where people are surprised by grace. You know the story well. It's the one that comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24. Cleopas and his unnamed companion are about 2 hours by foot east of Jerusalem, walking the hot, dusty road down to Emmaus after witnessing the crucifixion of Jesus just days before. Not only are these two travelers shaken by what they had seen, they're confused by what they didn't see just that morning. They ponder the discovery of the women disciples that Jesus' body is no longer in the tomb. The tomb was empty and Jesus was gone. And to add to that, there were strangers by the tomb who told the women that Jesus was alive. How could that be? And now another stranger, joining their walk, dares to ask, what in the world is going on? How could anyone not have heard the news that the heir to the throne of David has died and his body is missing? How could he not know what had taken place over the past week? Heart-weary and heavy-footed, these two travelers look at the stranger in disbelief. How could he not know how hopeless it all had become in just a few short days. And yet the presence of the Christ walks with them in their hopelessness. What they could not yet see is this, that even in their leaving, even in their overwhelm, even in their sorrow, they are not alone. Grace has already come alongside them. The two travelers pour out their hearts to this stranger. Hearing their despair, Jesus reaches back through the history of the Hebrew people and reweaves their story of hopelessness with fresh insight and patient wisdom. He asks them, how could it not be that all these terrible things should happen? To which he pointedly adds, was it not necessary? The sun is setting when the travelers near Emmaus, and so they invite the newcomer to join them for the evening. As they sit down to supper, Jesus takes the bread, breaks it, and blesses it. And it is in this final encounter with grace that they recognize him. It's not on the road that they recognize him. It's not in the teaching. It's not even in the questions. It is in the breaking of the bread, this ordinary, familiar, and seemingly small act, that their eyes are opened. The Holy meets them along the way, bringing truth to their confused reality. They should have known, they say to themselves, when their hearts burned while he spoke. Cleopas and his companion return immediately to Jerusalem to share the news with the other followers. But when they arrive, they learn there's another story of Jesus appearing, this time to Simon. As they share the Emmaus story, Jesus appears yet again. This time to the gathered followers, Jesus says, "Peace be with you." Luke tells us the group is startled and terrified as if they are seeing a ghost. Jesus reassures them, "Why are you frightened? Why do doubts arise in your hearts? It is I myself." The story is woven with burning hearts and doubtful hearts. The holy presence of grace stirs our hearts, sometimes in ways that feel unfamiliar, unsettling, even frightening, especially amidst the terrible unfolding of life-altering events. If you've ever had a leading that had you feel uncomfortable, you know how that feels. We doubt that our change of heart is actually grace moving through us, grace moving around us. We can't trust that the unfolding events may be necessary. Other times we burn with hope that there is grace, that there's enough grace to shift the riptides of external circumstances. Or at the very least, there's enough grace to calm our inner fears and doubts. I imagine that those who remained after Jesus was laid in the tomb may well have concluded that it was a tragedy, a travesty that Jesus, this miracle worker, this peace bringer, this justice seeker, should be hung amid criminals to die on a cross. But in the end, the world had not changed. Rome still ruled. Violence still held power. And yet something deeper, something bigger had changed. American author Anne Lamott writes, "I do not understand at all the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, and it does not leave us where it found us. Grace finds us wherever we are, and it doesn't leave us even when things seem hopeless, even when we're tired and dusty, bewildered and grief-stricken. Grace meets us there and takes us somewhere new. We're transformed by the presence of grace when we allow it, out of fear, out of disbelief, and into calm assurance, even if it's a calm within us. Evils wrought by empire, be they Roman or modern day, can hold no sway over that kind of inner peace. Grace is here to remind us of the sacred presence within us and around us, stirring our hearts and shifting our doubt. So perhaps the good news that follows in the wake of Easter is not only that Christ is risen, it's that grace still walks dry, dusty roads. Grace still comes alongside the heart weary. Grace still opens our eyes in the most ordinary of moments. And grace still leads us gently, persistently, from where we are to where we never imagined we could be. As the gospel song reminds us, and you have to raise your hand when I say it, God has not brought us this far just to leave us. It is when we allow ourselves to be surprised by grace that we are reminded we are not alone in this journey. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.